Good afternoon, children. Now, all of you, please, I request you all to sit straight wherever you are sitting, relax yourself, and keep your posture absolutely correct for the meditation. Now, just your feet should touch the floor, your back should be upright. Now, just close your eyes and taking just a minute, sit comfortably and relaxed. Invite all your senses to relax. Meet them as your friends. Appreciate the work they do. Now you choose to give them a break and imagine closing the motorways of your senses. Your thoughts begins to slow down. Your mind becomes clear. For few moments, nothing is moving. Your mind is free, resting, and now you return back to your work with clarity. Children, now a very beautiful thought is being displayed on the screen. Meditation is the journey from sound to silence, from movement to stillness, from a limited identity to unlimited space. Means if you do meditation seriously, right, you will move away, you will find a lot of peace inside you. And after that, the movement to stillness, you will become stable, right? There will be less restlessness in you, and you will find that there is so much scope for you to discover yourself. Now, children, with this thought, we start. Now, before we move on with the topics, I'm just reminding you that Saturday you have your economics test, 3 o'clock to 3:40, right? And the syllabus is Money and Banking chapter. Please log in time and keep your internet connection free, okay? And at 3:40 the link will get disabled. Okay, the general instructions now: turn off your audio and video the moment you join the session. I hope you all have done that. We need not remind you again and again. Then now you have to rename yourself as soon as you join the session. And now see, when you are renaming yourself, order is your name will appear first, then your admission number, and then your class and section. If you have any query related to the class, please send that query on my email ID, ashishavasan at lancersconvent.net. And I expect you all to maintain the decorum and discipline of the class. Thank you for your cooperation. So now I think in the last class, if I remember, we covered the sources of human capital formation, and the first source I covered was expenditure on education, and second was expenditure on health, and third, which I covered, was on the job training. So now I am moving on to the fourth source, which is considered as necessary for human capital formation. And for to have human capital formation, we incur expenditure on all of these five sources. Now, the fourth source I'm talking about is expenditure on migration. Now, migration basically, as in general language, we know that movement from one place to another. Now, migration can be of goods or of people, but now here human capital, when we are talking about, then we consider human beings as the source of human capital. Okay, so now migration basically will be we will be talking about people migrating from one area to another. Now, people migrate from one place to another. That is a common reason in search of jobs that fetch them higher salary. So this is the basic reason, and in most of the cases this happens, right? People are shifting from one place to another, from one job to another job, one state to another, one city to another, one country to another, basically if they are getting some better opportunities. So that is the basic reason for migration. Unemployed people migrate from rural areas to urban areas in search of jobs. Now, this means that unemployed people who are less skilled, these people move from one area, their native place, to some other state. They move from their native state to some other state, or from rural areas to urban areas, because if they will go to some other areas, they are getting better opportunities. They are getting better opportunities of earning higher salaries. And migration involves certain costs. Now, when people migrate from one place to another, why are these people paid higher salaries there? Why do these people get higher salaries? Because if we migrate from one place to another, right, there are certain costs which we have to incur, and the amount of all these costs is included in the salaries we get, right? Like skilled people, right? Software engineer, if I talk about, right? He shifts from one area to another area, one city to another area, right? Because I'm calling him as skilled because he's technically qualified. Okay. He'll migrate to other country because he's getting a higher salary. Now, one point before I go on, what all costs are included in migration, I would just like to give you one um, tip here, is that when unskilled workers migrate, they migrate from one state to another. Generally, this happens. Okay, in most of the cases, we have noticed this migration amongst the unskilled persons takes place from one state in the form of moving from one state to another state. But when skilled or professional people or technically qualified people, workforce moves or migrates, they generally migrate between countries. Okay, so for the rural people, generally it is the states, right? They move between the states, right, among the states, from one state to another. But for qualified people, it is basically the movement takes place between the countries. So please keep this thing in mind. Now, the migration cost involves, first, it is the cost of transportation from one place to another. That is when you travel from your native place to some other place. So there is some amount of expenses you incur on that travel. So that cost is also included, or that cost makes a part of migration. And that is why when you are being paid this cost, your salary increases. Okay. Second is that the higher cost of living in the migrated places. Now, second is that place where these people go, right? Now, there they will have to bear the expenditure, right, of that place itself. Like, suppose if some of you move to America, right? You go there, your parents go there and work, they migrate there in America. Now, when then they will go and work in America. So there they will have to incur the cost. That means whatever the stand to maintain the standard of living there things are a bit expensive, right? So therefore they will have to incur that cost, the higher cost they'll be incurring than what they are incurring in their own country. So to compensate that cost, they are being given higher wages, so that people are ready to move from one country to another country, or from one place to another place. So this is what we mean by when we say that a migration also includes higher cost of living in the migrated place. Like we have studied in poverty, the standard of living of people in urban areas is much costlier than the standard of living of people in rural areas, because things are expensive in urban area. So this we are talking about one country, but within the country I am talking about. But when you are moving from one country to another country, in that case, obviously if you are moving to a better off country, the cost of living there will be more. So to compensate you, you maintain at least the same standard which you were maintaining in your own country. So just to keep the same level of standard, the companies give you higher salaries. So these are first two components which makes up the migration cost. And third is the psychic cost of living in migrated places. Psychic cost basically means that when we shift from one place to another place, we have certain we go through certain mental tensions, whether we'll be able to adjust there, we will be able to make friends there, will we be able to live without our friends, relatives there. So all these, will the people there be helping people, the people who are who will help us, right? So all these tensions which we go through or which we face, so to compensate all these things, we are being paid higher wages, right? If you go to some other country, right, if you go to, let's say if you go to France, right, so there the language is totally different, right? The culture there is different, food habits are different, right? So this is what we think when we shift to some country. Before we shift to in some country, we think about all these things, and we have certain apprehensions then, whether I'll be able to adjust there or not, what problems will I be facing there if I go totally in some new surrounding. So to compensate a person, right, so to compensate a person, he is being paid higher wages. If higher wages are not paid, right, in this case, then I think most of us would not like to migrate to other countries or other states, right? So that is the main reason to let's say encourage people to migrate, right? So these costs are paid, and when these costs are paid to people, the cost which is being incurred, right, is much less than the incomes we get. Means our income increases so many let's say many folds than the cost that is being incurred on migration. So that is another reason. Okay, so migration is a source of human capital formation because the enhanced earning means increased earnings which people get are more than the increase in cost due to migration. So when people migrate, the cost that is being incurred on them, right, or for them, is very less as compared to what people earn in the form of earnings. So this is all about we have in migration. And since we migrate to other countries, we migrate to other areas, we learn certain new things, we develop new skills also. So therefore, when skills are developed, our ability to work increases. It is a part of human capital formation, right? So very fast expenditure on migration. People migrate from one place to another in search of better jobs, right? So as to increase their standard of living, right? Unemployed people migrate from rural areas to urban areas, whereas skilled people shift or migrate from one country to another. Generally, we have found this. Okay. Now, migration also involves the cost that is being incurred on transportation while transportation from one place to another, cost of living, higher cost of living in the migrated place, and the psychic cost. Okay. So these three things are included in the cost. Now, it's a source, we call it as a source of human capital formation because people are able to earn higher incomes than what the cost is being incurred on them. Now the next and the last source of human capital formation is expenditure on information. Okay, now information, basically what does this mean? Now I'm just relating this to you. Later on I'll just connect it with the labor force. Okay, now since you people are in class 12, right, most of you I think might have started working on the concept, on the area that after your class 12th, which all courses you will be taking up, and you will which all colleges you would like to join, what are the requirements, right, whether you have to clear some entrance test, when are these entrance tests conducted. So all this information you people are gathering, right? Now some of you are even attending the career counseling sessions also, you might be paying for them, right? So that is when you acquire knowledge. In order to acquire knowledge, you spend knowledge related to your field. Okay, so when you acquire, when you, let's say incur the expenditure, right, to know something, to get some knowledge, that is called as expenditure on information. Now to gather information, basically people, right, people incur expenditure, right, on labor. They want to know, get information related to labor market and other markets. Okay, now related to labor market means the profession they are into it, they want to know, right, about the profession they are going to take up, how much qualification is required, where will I get placement after I acquire this much of qualification, what will be the nature of work, what salary I'll be getting, where can I get better salary. So all this information people gather, and this is related to labor market, what wages I'll be paid for. Okay, other markets, basically here we are referring to, now if you want to work somewhere, you need to be, if you want to get good salary, you need to be educated, well educated, and you need to be healthy. So to keep themselves, right, healthy and educated, people also people also spend expenditure on maintaining their health and upgrading their education knowledge. So that means other markets will now include health and education. So on all these three areas, people incur expenditure. Now, the expenditure involves the amount spent on seeking information about educational institutions, their educational standards, and cost of education, right? So that means if people want to take, or if you people want to take admission in some institution, right, I have covered already this point, means I have just given you a hint as such, right? If you want to take admission in some institution, right, so what will you be doing? Maybe some of you may be incurring expenditure, going to various counseling, attending various counseling sessions, right? And then after incurring that expenditure, you, what will be the outcome? Okay, what will be the outcome? The outcome will be, the result will be that you will be getting admission in one of the colleges of your choice, course of your choice. Now similarly in labor market, if I talk about, right, if I talk about the labor market, there people incur expenditure on information to get better jobs, good jobs, high paid jobs, so that they can maintain a good standard of living, right? So when these people incur expenditure, like to some job consultants, they send their resume to job consultants, and when these job consultants refer them to various companies, and once they get a job, then some amount of their part of their first salary is given as commission to these job consultants. Okay, so this is the expenditure these people are incurring in order to attain information related to their fields, right? Now people gather all this information, right, and they, before they take up some job, this is called as investment when they invest money here. Okay. Then next is information is necessary to make decisions regarding investments in human capital as well as for efficient utilization of acquired human capital stock. That is, if you make investment, right, on attaining information, it is necessary to make investment on information, acquiring information, because in that case you will be able to take wiser decisions. Wiser decisions regarding means where you need to invest, which course you have to do, right? So that is an investment for you. Which course if you do a particular course you will do, this course will help you to increase your skills, right? Then furthermore, which all institutions will take you once you have done this course. So to know all about this, information is necessary, right? Next we have, I'm just summing up the sources of human capital, right? Whatever 5 sources we have done, I am summing them up just because the topic was not done at one go in a single class. Okay. So now sources I have listed down the sources: expenditure on education, the first one; expenditure on health, the second one; on the job training, right? Then fourth I have with me is expenditure on migration, and then expenditure on information. Let's take up the key points of each one of them. Expenditure on education basically is done, or people spend money on acquiring education just to improve their skills, right? And when they will improve their skills, they will be they will have they will be able to earn if incomes in future, right? And this will improve their standard of living, right? And furthermore, you have some social standing in the society, you are able to take wiser decisions, right? Understand the new changes taking place. So these are all the benefits of taking education. Then I'm talking about expenditure on health, right? Health along with education, health is also a very important factor that will increase human capital formation. If you are not healthy, you are educated, good enough, you are educated, but if you are not healthy, in that case, you will not be able to go for work regularly. And in that case, productivity will decrease. And when productivity decreases, obviously, you fetch uh, lesser incomes. Okay, so expenditure on health is again a very important factor. Now if you are healthy, this will improve your productivity, right? That is, productivity means the number of output of goods a person can produce, right? In case of labor, it is defined the number of units a person can produce or is producing is called as productivity. So if you are healthy, your productivity to work, efficiency to work will increase, and this will further increase your incomes. You will get more better opportunities, and then your quality of life will improve. On the job training basically means to upgrade your knowledge, right? To go further, right? To move up the ladder in your profession, you need to take on the job training. Okay, so on the job training basically means that when you are working side by side, you take acquired trainings also. That is what is on the job training all about. Now, all the job training, we know that if you are more skilled, you have more knowledge. So in that case, you will be able to improve your skills, right? And side by side, obviously, your efficiency will increase, efficiency to work will increase. Now when I covered this on the job training, I just mentioned you there that on the job training can be conducted in 2 ways. Every firm likes that its workers, labor force should take training, right? Now on the job training can be given in 2 forms. First, in campus, and another I covered was off campus. So in campus, as I conveyed, is in campus is when we say that one of your senior, okay, who is skilled, right? Senior who is skilled gives you the training within the company itself. Okay, so some senior person who is skilled, who has the knowledge of a particular field, trains you. That is what we mean by in campus. Off campus basically means that when you are being sent out to some other organization to take training. Now, firms prefer on the job training, people taking on the job training. Reason being, and when people workforce or the labor takes on the job training, firm expects them to work with them for some specified period of time, so that whatever they have learned in their training, firms can utilize that knowledge in their own company. Productivity will increase. So they would like such persons to work with them for a specified period of time. Next I have with me is the expenditure on migration. Just now I covered, right? Migration, unskilled people migration takes place generally from one city to another city or from one state to another. But in case of skilled workers, it is between the countries. Okay. Now, migration is basically, we say expenditure on migration is incurred because people want to increase their earnings, right? They want that they should be given higher incomes if they move out to some new inhabited places. Okay, and this we have studied what all cost does it includes, right? Psychic cost, transportation cost, and the cost of living in the other area. Expenditure on information basically is that to keep yourself updated, you need to incur expenditure on gathering information. Now, this will help you to make better decisions regarding which job will give you good salaries, right? And where you can comfortably work, right? So all this is going to help you when you incur expenditure on information. Now, next I have with me is human capital and economic growth. Now, before I take up what is it all about human capital and economic growth, I just want you to brush up your knowledge, right? Brush up your knowledge in the sense, just recall what is human capital. Yes, just recall what is human capital. Okay. Now, human capital, if I share it with you, right? When a human resource is highly educated, right? Human resource is highly, I say, educated, healthy, skilled, and productive also, I can say, right? Then it is called as human, that human resource is called as human capital. Okay, so human resource, when we have healthy stock of human resource, educated stock of human resource, skilled stock of human resource, and if we have productive human resource, then we call it as human capital. Okay, now what is economic growth? Now, economic growth, as I have told you, that economic growth can be measured in terms of national income. Now, national income, what? Basically, here we take real national income. Now, what is real national income? Now, national income, you know, by now you all know that national income basically means that money value of all the final goods and services that are being produced in an economy. That is in terms of money. When you value the production of goods and services in terms of money, it is called as national income. Now, when I'm using the word real, children always remember that whenever I'll use the word real, it will not be in monetary terms. It will not be a nominal value. Okay. So now when I'm saying real, I'm attaching one word before national income, and that is real. So real basically means that in terms of the amount of goods and services. So if we consider the amount of goods and services that are being produced in the economy, that will be called as real national income. And if the stock of goods and services, the volume of goods and services is increasing in the economy, then it is called as economic growth. Now, another thing which you all know, I know, but just to just connect you with the topic, who contributes more to the national income of a country, right? I'm giving you the options: a factory worker or a, let's say, software professional. Okay, who contributes more? Yes, 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 I can see this. I can feel the smile. I can guess you people are smiling because the answer is very obvious, that the software professor. Okay, now contribution, we also know that contribution of educated and healthy person is more than that of uneducated and unhealthy person. This I just now discussed with you. If you are educated enough, you are healthy, you will be in a position to earn higher incomes, and so you will be earning higher salaries. Okay, because obviously you will not be refraining from your work, right? Your productivity will increase. And moreover, we also know that from this we know that the labor skill of educated is more than the labor skills of less educated, right? Now, human capital formation helps to promote inventions, innovations, and technological improvements, right? Inventions means taking out the new ways, finding out the new ways of doing the things, right? Inventions basically means the finding out the ways to do certain things, right? Innovations, new, let's say, technology, new creativity, to find, to be creative is basically okay. And then there will be technological improvements, right? That means human capital. Please always remember, whenever I am using the word human capital or human capital formation, we mainly consider two major aspects, that is education and health. So if people are educated, if people are healthy, right, so inventions, innovations will be on a larger scale in the economy. Technology will improve with this. If we have better technology, better ways of doing a work, new softwares are coming, that is what we call technological improvement. And with this, the labor productivity will increase, right? So along with education, health, on the job training, right? Then your migration and information. These five factors form a part of human capital formation. But amongst all these factors, education and health are the two most important talked about factors. Okay, because they carry more importance than rest of the sources. Okay, now labor will be then in that case, if people are educated, they are able to adapt to the latest technological improvements. Now, from all this discussion, we can conclude that we have certain benefits of educated labor. Now, what are the benefits of educated labor? If we have more educated labor, what all advantages will we be getting? Okay, so the first advantage is that educated labor easily adapts to the new technology. Okay, whenever there is some new changes, new technology comes in, educated labor will be able to understand that technology very fast, and then that educated person will use this technology. Okay, second is that the educated labor, if you are educated or if we have more of the educated labor, this will increase the productivity of each individual. Okay, because You will understand the things very quickly, right? You will find out new ways of doing the things on your own, and thus you become, at times you even become experts also. And then it helps to make innovations and inventions, taking out new ways of doing the things. So these are the main benefits of educated labor. Now, there is a cause and effect relationship. Cause and effect relationship means generally we give a statement that human capital and economic growth, they have some relation. Some relation, basically we can interpret it like, if human capital increases, what will happen to economic growth? Or if economic growth takes place, what will be its effect on human capital? So there is some cause and effect, right? So that cause and effect relationship, to study that cause and effect relationship, first of all, we must know that in our country, right? In our country, we as such cannot establish a fixed relationship, cause and effect relationship between human capital and economic growth. Okay, right? Reason being, right, as we can say that it is difficult to prove cause and effect relationship between human capital and economic growth because of the measurement problems, right? Because when I'm saying human capital, again, I am referring to education and health here. Okay. Now, because in our country, education and health are measured in very different ways, right? And as such, we don't have any empirical evidence. Empirical evidence means data supported evidence. Okay. We don't have any empirical evidence to prove that there is some fixed relation between human capital and economic growth, because we face the measurement problems. Measurement problems means it's difficult to prove that increase in human capital causes increase in economic growth or decrease in economic growth. Okay, so that is what we mean to say here. If one increases, what will be its impact on other? It is very difficult to say because of the measurement problems. Now, what are these measurement problems? Like I've taken an example here, that we know that education in our country is measured in terms of years of schooling, teacher pupil ratio, and enrollment rates, which may not reflect the quality of education, right? Like education is measured, right, by taking three aspects. One is the year of schooling. Year of schooling means for how many years have you attended the school. Okay. Second we have is the teacher pupil ratio. Teacher pupil ratio means that in an in a school or in a class, how many children are attached to one teacher? What is the ratio? 1 is to 20. One teacher is to 20 children. One teacher is to the number of children that are there in the class. So that is the teacher pupil ratio. And next I'm talking about is the enrollment rates. Enrollment rates means that how many children are enrolled. Enrolled means who are regularly going to schools, right? Those who have their names in the registers, school registers, right? Means it's not that they are sitting at home and learning from their grandparents. They are not being registered in some school. No, not those children, right? So who have enrolled themselves with some school, right, with any school, that is called as the enrollment rate. Okay, so in our country, education is measured by considering these three aspects. But all these may not reflect the quality of education that is being given in the economy, right? Like if I say that, if let us assume that years of schooling is more, right? Teacher people ratio is very good, right? Then it teaches, we have a lot many teachers in the country, right? And with them we have lesser number of children attached. That is the teacher people ratio to be very good. And then we say that enrollment rates are very high. If these, all these three indicators are very good in the economy, but in spite of these indicators being very high, it is not, we are not sure, or we cannot say the, we cannot talk about the quality of education. I cannot say that yes, number of years of schooling is very high or very large, or very, we have more year number of years of schooling, right? Then enrollment rate is also very high, and thus the quality of education will be good. No, in spite of all these factors being in favor, quality of education may not be good, because these factors do not reflect the, they do not measure the type of education or the quality of education, I'm sorry, that is being given to the people. Similarly, health now. Health is measured in terms of money, right? Life expectancy and mortality rate. Health is expressed in terms of money. This means what amount of money you are incurring on health, the health expenditure you are incurring. That is, health is measured in terms of money. Then let's talk about life expectancy, a very familiar term, right, to all of us. Now, life expectancy means that how many years a person is expected to live, right? If everything goes normal, right? So that means, which, this is what we mean by life expectancy, right? Mortality rate, right? Mortality rate is the, basically, if I put it in simple words, mortality rate is basically the death rate, right? How many people will die, or how many people are dying per thousand of population. Okay, so that is the mortality rate. So in our country, health is measured through these three indicators. These are, we can also called as the components of health, right? Components to measure health. Now, then these two indicators, that is health and education, if we are talking about, so in real sense, they do not reflect the true health status of the people in a country, right? So that is why we say we face these measurement problem, how to measure the education correctly, how to measure health correctly. We don't have such indicators, good indicators, and that is why we come across these problems. And once we cannot measure them, right, so it will be very difficult to compare or establish the relation between these two, right? But economists, they don't give up very easily, right? So economists find out, they say that still there is some relation, in spite of so many limitations, there is still some relation between human capital and economic growth. Okay, still they believe that there is some relation, right? That is, they say that there is, we say that if human capital increases, so quite possible economic growth will also increase, or if economic growth will increase, human capital can also increase. So they still believe in this concept. Okay, so now there is, again we say, no, there is convergence in the measure of human capital, but no sign of convergence of per capita real income. So this is a very important point to understand. Okay, there is convergence. Convergence means that the two variables, that is your human capital and your health, they move in the same direction. Human capital and economic growth, sorry. So human capital and economic growth move in the same direction, then we say that there is convergence. Now for this, What these economists have done is that they have compared, right? They have compared human capital of one developing country with that of the developed country. Means first they are measured human capital in a developing country. Human capital, as I said, is measured through, I have given the indicators above. That is, human capital is measured through education and health. Okay, so after measuring this, after taking these two indicators, they measured human capital in developing country, and the same way it was measured in developed country. So what result was, what the result was that the human capital in both the countries, developing and developed countries, was moving in the same direction, right? That is, if human capital is increasing in developed countries, the same reaction was found in developed countries. But when we talk about real per capita income or per capita real income, there was no similarity. Okay, there was the pattern was not the same, right? Pattern was not the same. Basically was that in in a developing country, in spite of human capital increasing, real per capita income was increasing with a very slow rate. But in developed country, human capital formation is increasing, but side by side, your economic growth, the real per capita income also increased at a faster rate. Okay, so this is what we mean by the point when we say that there is convergence, means similarity in measuring human capital, but there is no similarity in measuring per capita real income. Okay, so this is the one main concern we are concerned about. Now, the conclusions, what we can draw here is that the conclusion, what I can draw here is that human capital and economic growth is a two-way process. Two-way process means it can be either way round. Either way round, like if we have higher income can also be termed as economic growth. Okay, people will get higher income only when we have economic growth in the country. So economic growth is there, higher economic growth, if we have, it will build higher level of human capital. If there is economic growth, people have higher incomes, they will spend more on education, more on health, acquire more information, right? So in that case, there will be high level of human capital formation. Another way is that we can reverse them. Okay, that is, if we have high level of human capital, right? If we have high level of human capital, it will cause growth of income, right? If people are more educated, people are more informative, people are healthy, right? If we have more skilled workers in our country, so what will happen? In that case, it will lead to growth of income, or it will lead to economic growth. So this is what finally we conclude from all the discussions, right? That the cause and effect relationship between human capital and economic growth is two-way. Okay, it can work in either direction. Either direction means either you can say first, either you can say that higher incomes, that is economic growth, will lead to high level of capital for human capital formation, or even you can say that high level of human capital formation will result in growth of incomes, right? Or growth of income basically is what we mean by economic growth. Okay, so this was the one aspect I wanted to cover. Just a recap: expenditure, right? On, I started from here, right? Migration, right? People migrate from one area to another, as I said, in search of better jobs. Migration cost involves three parts, right? Cost of transportation, higher cost, cost. Information basically to keep yourself updated in the profession you are, people incur expenditure, right? Now, for this, it is so that they can take wiser decisions in life, right? Sources of human capital, just a gist of those sources, and then human capital and economic growth. First, you need to know what is human capital and economic growth, right? And we know educated person contributes more and thus is able to earn higher incomes, right? Then we have benefits of educated labor, easily adapts to the new technology, increased labor productivity, and can make innovations, right? Then we have cause and effect. As such, we cannot have any cause and effect relationship. It's very difficult. Measurement problems are there because these indicators take us towards no conclusion. Okay, so there is no convergence. So finally, we can conclude that it works in two-way direction, and the two-way direction is being displayed on your slide. So this is all for the day today, children. Keep safe, stay healthy, stay safe, help your parents, right? And all the best for your exams. Thank you.